Day 3, July 17th. Although there was some concern that the exhaustion from 2 days of debate and discussion might begin to show, 4 section meetings covering extensive topics appropriate for the final day of the forum helped build excitement in the air. Reflecting the theme, the role of Tenrikyo in the world, the last series of section meetings were organized to take advantage of the international nature of the forum and have participants discuss the many ways the Tenrikyo Church can make contributions on the worldwide level. The section meetings each considered from a Tenrikyo perspective the possibilities on how to tackle issues regarding the rapid advancement of medical technology, the task of establishing world peace within a never-ending cycle of racial conflict, the various ways to promote cultural activities, and the search for a global approach to resolve environmental problems. When we take into consideration how Oyasama embraces the entire human race with her parental love, we certainly cannot avoid these issues if we are to realize her vision of the joyous life. The participants' enthusiasm increased naturally. Because the scale of the issues in question was so enormous, there may have been a risk for the discussions to border on fantasy. However, the section meetings actually brought forth more proposals from a well-grounded perspective, perhaps thanks to the program content of the previous 2 days.
That's the toilet. The small one is the toilet, and from the toilet
there is some activity that
The plenary address for the 3rd day was replaced in favor of regional meetings. Participants divided into several regional groups and brainstormed possible action plans that could be carried out in their respective countries and regions. Despite a lack of prior preparation for this session, those participating in the regional meetings deeply felt it was vital that they not lock away what they experienced during the last 3 days as a precious memory. All participants were keenly aware that it was their responsibility to take and implement the valuable lessons they learned at the forum once they returned to their respective countries. Although the time frame allotted for this activity did not allow concrete decisions to be made, it appeared the participants were able to establish a clear idea on what direction they wished to proceed.
One day I had misunderstood then my father phoned me.
So we had a concert which was
I told him that I'm trying to share.
It could be one possibility, but we have a lot of discussions about translating Stone and Mikagurata itself into another.
Also,
maybe on the chart.
Yeah, on the actual chart itself, and yeah, that's not.
And Xavier was here for just a very short time, so you can't say much of his records. But there are many very, very, infamous. It would be very rude to say infamous, but they are the people, other Jesuits who have written a lot about Japan.
ここでもちょっと発表させていただきましたし、ちょうど1週間前もですね、京都大学の教育研究学ボードで発表させていただきました。で、今回Tenri Forumで、来週は東京の早稲田大学である発表をさせていただきますし、再来週はですね、ワシントン DC の開発フォーラムというところで発表させてもらうんですけど。
Ladies and gentlemen,
A public symposium was held on that afternoon. The title of the symposium was the same as the forum's main slogan, New Frontiers in the Mission. Mr. Yoshihiro Nakamura, the former Japanese ambassador to Uruguay, delivered a special lecture based on his personal experience and diplomatic knowledge. Mr. Nakamura conveyed his expectations and visions on how Tenrikyo should contribute to the salvation of the world.
Until his death, I was very much impressed with him. I think that his way is telling us, Tenrikyo, something to learn. While operating the church in developing countries, it might be better for Tenrikyo missionary people to use grassroots granting for similar projects. The system can be utilized for those projects in the field of primary schools, clinics, wells, and human capacity building, like a vocational training for women. Its standard ceiling for each project is up to 10 million yen.
The next speaker
Continuing
is
on,
Reverend
two leaders who are
Nobuyuki
actively
Takeuchi,
spreading the
and the title
teachings in
is
English-speaking
For
countries
Expanding Tenrikyo.
also shared their thoughts on the direction they felt Tenrikyo ought to proceed. The first speaker, Reverend Nobuyuki Takeuchi, head of Kyokushi London Mission Station, supplemented the symposium with a global perspective. He presented a statistical forecast of Tenrikyo's potential membership and urged for an increase in action to bring about the future growth of the path.
Within Japan, and since also it will be spread throughout Japan, throughout the world thereafter. In conclusion, in order to accelerate the progress of the mission, especially outside Japan, we Tenrikyo's must communicate with the world about Oyasama, who is now enabling us to level the ground throughout the world according to the prophecy which was made in the 19th century.
The next speaker was Reverend Toshikyo Yukimoto, head minister of Central Fresno Church in California, USA. He inspired the audience by expressing his personal convictions on how local churches ought to enrich our faith, and by offering his outlook on world salvation from a highly localized perspective.
And I'm sure everyone knows this. And Dr. Tenrikyo had mentioned, God the Parent created human being to see the joyous life. And thus to share in that joy, to bring this intent of God the Parent into the realization is the significance of human life and the ultimate goal of humankind. And number one is enlarge your vision. God has bigger things for us, much, much bigger than what we think. That's why we need to open up your vision much bigger than what it is as a goal that we have.
If you haven't noticed,
A panel discussion followed, where Reverend Yukimoto and Reverend Takeuchi served as panelists and were joined by Mrs. Rumi Miyauchi, wife of the head of Asakusa Wave Mission Station in Hawaii. The discussion was presented in a question and answer format, where the three panelists shared their thoughts on the future of the path based on their personal faith and current situations. Everyone in attendance fixed their rapt attention as the panelists fervently shared their respective experiences walking the path and demonstrated the depth of their faith and conviction in their articulate answers to the moderator's questions.
But I couldn't put it into action until the point came where I needed an answer. I just needed an answer. If not, I could not function. My answer came from Oyasama. All the answers.
It is my pleasure to introduce the Director-in-Chief of Administrative Affairs, Reverend Masahiko Iburi.
Reverend Masahiko Iburi, Tenrikyo's Director-in-Chief of Administrative Affairs, rose to the podium to express words of encouragement to conclude the public symposium.
Which we call Tenri Forum 2006. Finally, I would like all of you, all of us, to reaffirm that we must ourselves implement Oyasama's teachings with strong confidence and convey them to others with courage and perseverance in the face of all difficulties that may arise. And before that, I want Reverend Terada coming up on the stage. Please.
At the end of his speech, Reverend Iburi presented a bouquet of flowers to show his appreciation to Reverend Yoshikazu Terada, the chairperson of the steering committee and president of Tenri Seminary. Reverend Terada broke into a large smile upon receiving a standing ovation and chose a simple thank you to express his gratitude to all the participants and especially the steering committee members who worked behind the scenes to make this event possible.